I truly and sincerely believe that the world is as bad as it is right now because it's not worse. I know that might sound a little weird, but we're going to get into it. It's called the region beta paradox. And the way it was first introduced to me was if something is half a mile away, you might walk to it. But if it's a whole mile away, your lazy ass going to get in the car and drive down there. So now you cover double the distance in half the time, or maybe even less than half the time. Because the situation was more severe, you were willing to take more drastic action to reach a goal, and you got that goal faster. You got to that destination quicker and more efficiently. And that is what we're going to be discussing today. If you're new here, welcome to the Emancipation Podcast and welcome to the war. And if you're returning, welcome back to all my revolutionaries. So let's talk about the region beta paradox. First things first, I want to give the dictionary definition that we're all on the same page. The region beta paradox is defined as a psychological phenomenon coined by Harvard psychologist Daniel Gilbert. It describes situations where a mildly uncomfortable circumstance traps you for a longer time than a highly distressing one. When things are intensely bad, your psychological defense mechanisms trigger and force you to take action and recover, whereas mild discomfort causes complacency. Now, I know I said this is why America and the world is as horrible as it is, but I'm going to give you a few different aspects to look at. We're going to touch on relationships, your workplace, health, and America. So let's start with relationships. Let's be for real. A lot of y'all are in relationships that you know damn well you have no business being in. Like you should have left that a long time ago, but you stay. Why? Because it's not hell. They don't beat on you yet. They haven't cheated on you yet. They haven't done any of that stuff. It's just mildly inconvenient, but it's not hell. So they may not really care about your feelings. They may not be the best communicator. They may have a lot of things about them that aren't necessarily the best. However, they haven't done any of the vile things yet. You think you need something menacing to happen to you for you to be like, you know what, maybe it's time for me to get out of here. And that's not the case. You don't have to wait for it to get that terrible. However, the region beta paradox describes it as something that people just normally do. You wait for situations to get extremely uncomfortable before you're like, yep, time to get up out of here. Like it takes for somebody to beat on you, like literally put hands on you before you think to yourself, you know what? I shouldn't be wearing sunglasses indoors because I got two black eyes. I should probably leave. It takes somebody cheating on you, literally swapping DNA with someone else or multiple other people, depending on the situation, for you to be like, you know what? Maybe I should leave. Because now you feel like it's okay to leave. It was okay to leave when the relationship was not positive anymore. But you guys, for whatever reason, feel like you needed some kind of reason, a good reason to get out. That being said, that is no excuse for some of you people, especially you women, who are actually in good relationships and then leave because you're bored. No. No, that's not the same thing because a lot of times when I see those relationships, they're like, he was a great guy. He paid all the bills. He listened to me. He cared. He loved me. He did everything that I wanted. And I was just like, nah, I needed something more. I wanted to go out here in these streets and get flipped around like a goddamn cheeseburger. That's not the same thing. I'm talking about people who are in uncomfortable, not the best relationships, but then choose to stay in because nothing terrible has happened yet. I had a buddy who was dealing with something like that. He was in a relationship with a woman that he really should not have been with. Like she never listened to him at all. It didn't help that she was deaf, but like whenever he tried to do the sign language thing, she just closed her eyes. And I just thought that was highly disrespectful. And it shouldn't have taken things to get that bad for him to leave, but he stuck around. And every time he tried to communicate with her, she just closed his eyes and things never really got better. It didn't help that his next relationship, the chick was blind. I don't know how he keeps finding these differently able chicks. And what got him to finally realize it was time for him to change his ways is because she stepped out on him. And when the blind chick steps out on you, it hurts more than when the regular chick steps out on you because she has to use three legs to do it. You know, and anyway, eventually he did like confront her about it. And she was like, I just think it's time we see other people. Anyway, the workplace is another place where people get really complacent because things aren't terrible yet. The job is not the greatest, but it's not hell. The pay isn't the best, but you can pay your bills. You may not have too much to put into savings, but you're not homeless. So, you know, it pays the bills, so you stick around. The work, it feels meaningless, but it's not too difficult. You get it done without too much effort. You do your 8 hours or 12 or whatever you work and you get home, but you're not really living your dream. You're not doing what you want to do. You don't love what you do. You find no passion, no energy, nothing in the work that you do, but it's not hell. But then it's going to take something like a false allegation, like workplace abuse, for you to be like, you know what, maybe I'll leave here. Or even more, sometimes it's going to take for you to be laid off, because even if you go through some nonsense at work, you may not leave. And then when you get laid off, now you have no choice but to change. I've seen many of videos where people are like, getting laid off was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. That place was not serving me. That place wasn't good. And then when I was laid off, I finally had the freedom. I felt liberated that I could finally do what I wanted to do. You had that freedom the whole time. That's the whole thing of my channel, Emancipation, emancipating yourself from these shackles that you place on yourself. A lot of you guys are at these jobs, you have these golden handcuffs. In my personal life, I'm kind of a victim to that as well. Handcuffs ain't really golden though. I don't get paid that much. It's like silver, bronze, aluminum. I got aluminum handcuffs on, and I'm not gonna pretend like I'm exempt from all this stuff, but I'm, reaching towards freedom, fun, and adventure, like I try to preach to you guys to do. And I plan on escaping my job within 1 year. That's the thing. I give myself a time frame. I know I want to leave this. I know I want happiness. I know you guys want happiness too. But you have to realize that you shouldn't have to wait for things to get horrible for you to finally decide that it's time for you to move on and get to better things. My friend who was dating the deaf, then blind chick experienced something like this. He worked at local fairs. He used to, like, ride his unicycle and juggle and shit like that. But he always wanted something more. He wanted to be a part of Ringling Brothers and work at the big circus. But, working at the fairs was cool. It wasn't until one day there was some kind of, I don't even remember the details, some tragic Ferris wheel accident. The whole thing went bankrupt. And he finally had the opportunity to go chase his dreams. Now he's a trapeze artist. So you don't have to wait for things to get increasingly bad for you to leave a situation. Health is another big place where people wait for it to get incredibly worse before it gets better. Like, people be 10, 15, 20 pounds overweight, but it isn't until they're like 100 pounds overweight and they have some kind of embarrassing moment where they sit down on an office chair somewhere and then the whole chair just sinks into the ground, creates a whole sinkhole. They snap the sides of the chair or something, or they go to they go shopping and none of the clothes fit them. Now they realize, okay, I need to change my life. You should have changed your life 40 pounds ago, but it wasn't bad enough yet. It wasn't until you were trying to climb up a flight of stairs and it felt like you were trying to reach the peak of Mount Everest that you realized that, you know what, I think it's time that I change my life. It should never get to that point. Sometimes it's as bad as somebody having an entire heart attack that they survive, and then they decide, you know what, I need to get my life in order. Or you think it's a heart attack and then you get to the hospital and the doctors tell you, yeah, it's just gas, man. How many Twinkies did you eat? You probably shouldn't have eaten that many in a row there. That's pretty bad for your digestive tract. And then people are like, you know what? I'm going to get my life in order. People wait for things to get incredibly worse before they get better. Like my buddy who was dating the deaf, then the blind chick, and then became a trapeze artist. He was living his dream as a trapeze artist, but he was getting big. The money was good. He was eating all the turkey legs and cotton candy he wanted, working at the circus, and he was getting larger and larger. Really not the best for a trapeze artist. One day he swung from one rope to another like Tarzan or whatever the hell they be doing. And then when he grabbed the trapeze, the whole tent came down on him, on everybody. Just boom, just ruined the whole night. Ringling Brothers had to shut down for the night. And then he realized, I got to get my life in order, because he was at risk of losing his job. He would have ended up cycling and juggling again. That's not what he wanted. So he decided to get his life in order. And it should have never got to that point. Now let's get to the coup de grace. America, land of the free, home of the brave, right? America is as bad as it is right now because it's not worse. Taxes are bad, but they're not terrible. Wages aren't great, but people are kind of surviving, so it's all right. Groceries are getting expensive, but people could just afford them, so nobody's really starving. And so people are stuck in this weird place where it's like things are bad, but they're not extremely terrible. And people become complacent in this kind of thing. Most of this country is surviving based off of debt. And it's going to be a matter of time before this whole thing comes crashing down. America's a house of cards. But it's going to take for it to crash before people rise up. Look, wars have been fought for less than what we're dealing with right now. Entire civilizations have been toppled because of corruption from the government, because the government no longer is serving the people, because the people feel like they no longer matter. Horrible situations cause great change. Sometimes it takes for that to happen before people actually rise up, but it should never get to that. America's at a place right now where it is really bad, but it's just decent enough to where you don't realize how bad you're getting done. And until people realize that we have the power, until people realize that you don't have to wait until you're starving to fight, until people realize that you don't have to accept these trash minimum wage jobs, bachelor's degree required, paying $18 an hour entry level, but you need 10 years of experience. It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. People are not angry enough. People are not upset enough. And the people who are upset are content with just making videos about it, talking about it, complaining. And I know what you might be thinking right now. Aren't you doing the same thing? No. Here's what I'm trying to tell you guys to do. We need to have a collective boycott. Maybe it's too difficult to boycott everything all at once, but as a collective, we can pick a specific industry and then just boycott them. I think the auto industry is where we should start. The auto industry and fast food are two that we should attack immediately. And by attack, I mean that we should stop giving them our money. We need to figure out different ways to afford vehicles, really fix up vehicles, buy old fixer uppers, maybe buy a $3,000 jalopy and then put another 5 to 6, maybe $7,000 in it. And now you spent $10,000 on a car that might last you another 7 years. That is beneficial because at the end of the day, a car is just a tool. We got to get out of this mindset that cars are something that we need to use to flex on people. Once you get enough money, yeah, have your fun. But we need to start boycotting some of these industries, and it has to be a collective boycott to collect to specific industries. Because if we just say buy nothing rebellion, we're not going to buy nothing. It's not going to work. There's this whole thing called the buy nothing rebellion where people are spending less money, but it has to be very specific industries. When you are more specific and you have a very particular goal, change is inevitable. People have to realize that we are the ones in power. These people in these fancy titles, in these fancy positions, these representatives, these senators, these this and these that, understand that they work for you. Your taxpayers, your vote is what puts them in office. You're the reason they can feed their families. And you have to realize that you have all the power. And until you realize that, America is not going to get any better. Don't wait for the system to crash before we decide to fight back. It doesn't have to go all the way down here. Because even if we decide to rise up after it's already crashed, on the way up, it's a long, hard road. Right now, we can still fix it. We can still fight. We can still win. We, the people, have the power. That's all I'd say on this episode. Be easy.